at least 10 years old. Prior to that, we never had no prior consent of anything, and we are still unceded, unsurrendered. The thing with that term unceded and unsurrendered is that not many of us believe in that. We still go out to do our actions, and then go back to that colonial reservation system that the government has instilled upon us. And when we went to Isk'ukan, they got a really strong case. They practiced that unceded and unsurrendered moniker. So what we are going to do is go back on our territory and not just live on our territory, get back to reclaim our rightful territory, our land. We're going to also be providing certain aspects to colonialism, because we've actually been involved with colonization on a personal level, and we haven't witnessed that on a social level, and that's what we need to do. We were very fortunate to have our grandparents. They were the last of our people to actually walk on their trails with hide, slippers, moccasins, snowshoes, with their dogs, packing their meat with them, going out hunting, utilizing the territory. They were the last, and we are the second generation from that. Our great-grandfather and grandmother would take their kids, our grandparents, out on the trap line, as they say, to keep them away from residential schools. So when we had them teaching us, they were teaching us from a perspective that we had no clue of what it was to be Didene, our people. So when they were teaching us the language, they opened a door to the way we were supposed to be thought of right before that perspective was taken away by our residential schools, when they instilled that, when they established that whole kill the Indian and the child perspective towards our people. So it took us a while to fight to where we're at on an individual level, on our intellectual level, because we have to actually say that, we can't just say that we're First Nations. We actually have to find out how we're First Nations, and we've done it through language. Our grandparents taught us language, and they were so keen on teaching us every aspect to it. We've got a great understanding of what it is to be Tahltan thinking. The way they taught us the language opened the doorways to how our people were cognitively related to the land, the territory. And that's the thing. That's indigenous perspective. We've understood that speaking English language, and we understood the Western perspective, and that's very separate. It's from a separatist point of view, as opposed to indigenous perception, where land, body, mind, and soul are all commingled. That's how we learned our Tahltan traditional spirituality, was understanding the language through our grandparents. They actually taught us how it was to think indigenously. So when we actually do our actions, we're not just coming from a stance that rights and title. It's more of a holistic stance that we have, because our language paints a picture of what it is. For example, our grandparents taught us this word, and this is really key to a great example of what we're dealing with. What my grandpa called high words. What he meant was articulate Tahltan words, and it's Isk'ukan, and he said that meant I'm happy in my mind. But when we broke down the language, it roughly translates to my cognitive landscapes in my mind is beautiful. Beautiful geographical landscape within my mind. So they're juxtaposing the mind and the land together. So when you leave your territory, your mind is not happy. You're unfamiliar with your land. It's someone else's territory. As soon as you get back to your own territory, your grandmother's fireplace, your own trails, your tracks, you're happy. You're homesick once you're out of there. Once you're back, you're happy. Now this is important because our mind also is related with our land. So when we are reclaiming our identity, it's not just the way we think, it's also the land that's on it. So we use the term reclamation for the fact that the landscape in our minds has been damaged tremendously, much like our lands will be, like, along with mining, logging, and so forth. And the reclamation process is like we're not just separating from the Western sense. We're also indigenizing. We're not just decolonizing. That's just one process of what we are promoting. We're also indigenizing. When we decolonize, we're just separating from colonialism. That would leave that empty space in there. It's just an empty shell. It'd be an apathetic fight if we don't fight for something. So when we indigenize, we're actually fighting for our history, our oral traditions, our songs, our language, the fabric that keeps us who we are. So that's what we are planning to do when we get back on our territory, to revive our spirituality, our language, our culture. So that's the importance to what we are going to do with our territory and Tahltan territory.